Okay, so in this tutorial I'm going to show you, in previous tutorials, other tutorials I've showed you guys what the tools are. Here in this one I'm going to show you guys what they look like when you start actually using them, textures, things like that. So we have technical pens, that's what we're going to kind of start with, and brush pens. So as I've shown you guys in previous tutorials, I tend to use some Pitt pens. I also use a Kuretake brush pen, and I use a Pitt pen, brush pen, and a Copic for filling in larger areas, stuff like that. So technical pens, and this is a medium point, give me, depending on the paper, it gives you a line that's of even thickness. And if I press and lightly draw my hand up, I can get feathered pointy ends to it as well. If I want a thicker line than this pen is able to do, then I double over the line to get a thicker line. Ideally, you want to use a pen that, or a brush rather, that gives you a better thick and thin line and not so even. We tend to use technical pens to ink machines, inorganic things, but they can be used to ink people and figures. You just sometimes have to double over your lines to get thickness, depth, to create the illusion of form. So this is my Kuretake brush pen, and similar with a brush, any kind of brush, the harder I press, the thicker the line is, the lighter I let my line up or press on the paper, the thinner the line gets. So you see how in one brush stroke with a brush pen, in one stroke I was able to do this. This one took 2 strokes. So whatever you're comfortable with in terms of your tools. I use brush pens, again, if I want thicker lines, and if I want to fill in large areas. I might use like the Copics or the Pitts, because I want to fill in areas, large areas. So that way I'm not using a small technical pen and it's going to look kind of scratchy and not really full. And then I can come back over that if I want, and I can add my feathering to it with my brush pen. Like so. You can create textures with cross hatching and things like that. They should kind of curve over the contours. So if you've got a round sort of shape, then you're going to want your lines a little rounder. They should get lighter and farther apart. As you get closer to the light source, it should get darker and closer over one another. And as they get farther away from your shadow, they should cross over one another less. That's with a technical pen. You can do it, of course, with brushes as well. So, I'm going to show you guys if I were drawing like maybe a jawline. It gets farther away, and as it gets closer to the shadows, it gets tighter in there. But, I might add some hatching onto the side. I could probably even go a little further if I wanted. And then it kind of creates an illusion of where we've got some shadow on the form, but not a lot of thick or heavy shadow, but it's still dark on that side of the form. And I'm doing this a little at kind of random, but it's kind of all comes back to the same sort of concept of you got to understand the form that's underneath. So there's my jawline. So we'll start with the cheekbone maybe in here. I'll fill that in a little bit. Cheek muscle in there. Clean these lines up a little bit. And I'll come in with my Kuretake and feather it out a little bit. Like so. It's a large area, so and my brush pens there, larger brush pens, and so yeah, you just got to kind of understand what your form is underneath, whether it's human or not. But we can create these kind of interesting sort of light textures by hatching over one another. But technical pens, brush pens, pen and brush, if you're using bottles of ink and stuff like that, all same sort of concept. The harder you press, the thicker your line. Mechanical pens, technical pens tend to give you an even line regardless how thick you press. You have to double over your line if you want a thick and thin line. Brush pens and regular brushes and bottles of ink will give you those thick and thin lines in one stroke instead. And you can create interesting textures. We can use textures to create not just shapes on form, human faces or anything like that in bodies, but you can use it to create illusions of dirt, rock, all kinds of cool stuff. So you can find any number of resources out there for inking textures, and but that's basically the kind of line weights that you're going to get with your different pens.